لله رب السماوات ورب الأرض رب العالمين وله الكبرياء في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. الحمد لله في نعمته تتم الصالحات. ربنا لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا رضيت ولك الحمد بعد الرضا. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيد الأولين والآخرين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله وأمين على وحيه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته لا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, all praise and glory and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everything we have, and we come in ni'matan min Allah. And we are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all our needs. أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد. So do your best, one, to thank Allah for all that He has given you, and two, to ask Him for all that you need. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, we all talk and want a better future for ourselves, for our families, for Muslims, for humanity, and we all talk about and want change. There is no question, there should be no question in the minds of Muslims that our current situation is not satisfactory. Just look at the map and go from one country to another and think about what's going on. It's not really promising, and it's something that is makes you feel sad. But in order to do that, in order to build a better future, in order to change the situation, we should have the right approach. Because with the wrong approach, we're going nowhere. And you know that insanity is to keep doing the same thing the same way and expect different results. It's not going to happen. If we're thinking the same way and doing things the same way, then we're going to get the same results. So we need the future need to be built on a solid foundation. Solid foundation. What is this solid foundation? It consists of two things. One is, what's your reference? What's your reference to consider the situation satisfactory or not? We were just talking about that because we are better than before, then we should be happy. Why? Because people don't have a reference. They have a very bad reference. That things cannot be worse, so anything should be acceptable or should be. Now, what is our reference? And we're going to talk about that. And second, what is the right approach in order for us to be able to change our conditions and to build that better future? And that's what we started talking about last time. There is an effective approach that can help you changing your situation. And now, when it comes to the reference, the big questions that should be in our mind always is the question of who we are and what is our mission in life. What's your mission in life? What is it that you want to achieve? من نحن وماذا نريد. That's a simple who we are and what is it that we want to achieve. What are your roles and responsibilities in life? That you fulfill them to the best of your abilities. And alhamdulillah, Islam gives us a very clear, very inspiring, very challenging reference, which is you are servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's your identity, Abdullah. And your job in life is to understand and fulfill the purpose of the Creator. The meaning of being servant of Allah, Abd, is that you're going to dedicate your life to understand and fulfill the purpose of Allah. معرفة أو فهم وإنفاذ مراد الله. And your ultimate objectives in life should be what? That should be the reference. Because when you don't have a reference, you can easily be misled and deceived. As many of our people, they can be deceived and misled easily. Why? Because they don't have a compass. They don't have a reference. Your ultimate reference is one, أن تلقى الله وهو عنك راض. That you meet Allah while He is pleased with you. That should be in your ultimate purpose in life. And then, before you meet Allah, you want to see His purpose fulfilled. You want to see the purposes of Allah fulfilled on earth. Which means you want this world to be more just, to be more free, to be more virtuous, etc. So, on one hand, you want to meet Allah and find Him pleased with you. On the other hand, you want, and both are related. Allah will not be pleased with you if you are not doing your best to fulfill His purpose, to make sure that His purposes are full. And we mentioned this time and again, that this practically comes down to a couple of things that you have to focus on and ask yourself every day, day in, day out. Hold yourself accountable according to these three items. One is your own tazkiyah. Your own tazkiyah, meaning Allah wants you to be all you can be. Allah wants you to leverage all the potential that He has given you. So from one day to another, are you improving? Are you learning something new and implementing it to be a better person? That's what makes Allah pleased with you. Allah wants to see you a better person every day. So be a better version of yourself until you become the best version of yourself. And second, and of course part of this is to perfect your roles and responsibilities. Your roles as a spouse, your role as a parent, your role as a neighbor, at the workplace, etc. Allah loves to see you perfecting these. So, to be the best version of yourself and to perfect your roles and responsibility, to do them to the best of your ability. Second item that you need to ask yourself and hold yourself accountable, what did you do for others? Because a key element in our mission is to help others become better people. It's also called tazkiyah. And that's the job of the Prophet. How noble it is. يَتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. So uplifting people, mentoring them, sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and advice and your time and your money, whatever you can do in helping people, that's the most beloved deeds to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The most beloved deeds to Allah is what you do to benefit others. So you ask yourself every night you go to sleep, what did you do? In what way you improved, and what did you do to others? And third is your contribution to the greater good. What did you contribute to make this world a better place? Even small things. Don't underestimate any or belittle any things. Whatever you can do to make this world a better place. And as I say this world, of course, it comes down to your circle, because that's where you have the biggest influence. What did you do to make your neighborhood, your city, your workplace, etc., your community a better place? These should be the reference that we hold ourselves accountable. So as long the purpose of Allah is not fulfilled completely, we still have work to do. So when we have this reference, we cannot be misled or deceived. Then comes to the approach. So put that in the background always. That's our reference in order to build a bright, better future and change our situation. Now the approach I mentioned last time, it consists of few steps. All of them has to be done right. Any one of them, if it is not done, if it is violated or done wrong, then you're not going to get the results that you want. So if you want to change our situation, we need to adopt this approach. What this approach calls for, one, to understand what's going on. Diagnosis. What is really going on, not what you like, not the way you like it. Because people, unfortunately, our people develop this idea of denial, or tell me something that I like. Don't tell me the truth because it is really brutal. No, should be looking for the truth and see things the way they are. What is really going on? What happened? And if you have the wrong answer here, everything else is useless because you are set in the wrong direction from the beginning. We have seen this happening time and again. I mentioned last time the example of Syria. There are people who have the wrong version of what happened. It's suitable, very convenient, but it is not what happened. Of course, that will lead to wrong expectations, lead to disappointment later on, set you on the wrong direction. While understanding what's going on, may not be convenient, but at least will lead you in the right direction to do what needs to be done, so that we make this experience successful one. And then how and why we came to this point. So 3 questions: what happened exactly, how and why we came to this point. Again, remember the medical doctor asking you about family history so that they can understand your situation. Family history can be very helpful. How and why we came to this point. Of course, if you have the wrong narration, historical narration, you cannot build solid future on a shaky foundation. Understanding the current situation and understanding the evolution on how we came to this point are critical for changing situation and building bright future and solid future. If you do these correctly, then comes, okay, now understand where I'm standing, understand how I came to this point. Then what is your vision? What is it that you want to do? Why this is important? This is like your destination in driving. If you don't have your destination in mind, you lose your way. But what is your vision for the future? One of the biggest problems that we have in Muslim countries nowadays is we have people who live without a dream. They don't have a great ambition. And no society will prosper without a rallying cause or dream, something that will mobilize it. We have seen this happening when people were colonized. They rallied behind what? They rallied behind independence. It was the dream that mobilized people and unified them. Unfortunately, there was nothing after that, so again we lost momentum and we get stuck there. And we keep repeating this, unfortunately, that we turn a temporary goal into ultimate goal. Nobody asks about what is next. Okay, we're working for independence, but let's start talking about the day after independence. We're talking about to topple the regime, oppressive regime, great. But how about the day after? So that doesn't become the ultimate goal. Always it's just a phase. Finish it, think about the next one. And I mentioned that Rasulullah did this perfectly, that he kept his people unified and mobilized all the time. Why? Because anytime they come close to a goal, the Prophet will push the bar higher. So they are always on their toes, always mobilized, always unified. And they gave the example that when they were signing the deal with Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, Rasulullah immediately sent his emissary to the leaders of the world because he realized there is a phase that is about to finish. And he didn't want his people to hit a stop sign or to become stagnant and complacent, so he started engaging a wider circle. Vision. Time and again we get caught from this. I mentioned independence, I mentioned the Arab Spring. Why? Because when you don't have that ultimate vision, your first achievement will make you complacent, will get you plunged in celebration mode and mission accomplished feeling. That's it, we're done. Job is done. No, it's not. It's just a phase. You can celebrate the day, you can celebrate the week, but then you need to resume your journey if you have the vision set right from the beginning. Of course, you have a vision and then a strategy on how to get there. How to get there. And the plan. And then what? And then execute that plan diligently, day in, day out. And then what? And then be prepared to make adjustments. Don't stick to your ways, even if they prove to be inefficient. Have that flexibility to reassess, reevaluate, and be ready to make adjustment. Sometimes even course correction, changing course, or making adjustment to your plans and to your strategy. And then what? And then lessons learned, always, so that every generation will build on the previous generations. Lessons learned, and hold the people who make decisions, hold them accountable. Muhasabah, holding people accountable. Extremely important, because time and again we have leaders who cause disaster and they remain in power because we don't have that accountability in our system and in our mindset. Then we start talking and apply this approach. Looks complicated, but it is not. This is what you need to apply at the in your personal life, family, community, society, at all levels. And if it is done correctly, you should get the results that you want. I mentioned that when it comes to our conditions as Muslims, and we fail from the first step, which is to understand what's going on and how and why we came to this point. And I mentioned the narration that is adopted by the vast majority of Muslims. What is this narration? Vast majority of Muslims will tell you that we have been in great shape, and Islam was in great shape until very recently, until the collapse of the Ottoman Khilafah or the Ottoman Empire. Before that, we were the leaders of the world. Islam was in good shape, great, and we Muslims were in great shape. And then what? And then we have this accident. The Ottoman state or dynasty collapsed, and then became colonized, and the Western power, whatever, pushed us away from Islam. And alhamdulillah, and we have the liberation movement was able to push the colonial and the occupation, and then the Islamic movement brought people back to Islam, and we're good. Things are fixed. And we had the road accident, but then we fixed it, and we are in good shape. And then people will tell you, no, actually, there was another problem, but even that was fixed. We found out that we are ruled by oppressive and corrupt regimes, استبداد. So استعمار, بعد عن الدين, استبداد. Rally, people topple those regimes. Gone. Dictatorship is gone in Tunisia, gone in Egypt, gone in Libya, gone in Syria, recent gone. What happened? Gone in Yemen. What happened? When you confuse yourself when you say these problems were fixed, it turns out that the problem is much deeper than that. So it is about time to take that narration and throw it away, because it is very flawed. It has a lot of gaps. It has a lot of contradiction. You give it to a young Muslim, you confuse them. Very simple question they can ask. If we have been in great shape all this time, why we collapse suddenly? You can't go from leading the war into colonization, into being occupied in no time. There must be some things that are at work before that. So there is a problem there, right there. And it's very flawed and has a lot of contradictions. And then if you tell people that people came back to Islam and nothing has changed, so what's the problem? These are the tough questions that we need to be asking ourselves. So that narration is obsolete, very flawed, has a lot of gaps, a lot of contradiction and confusion, and it caused many people to desert Islam because it makes no sense. You cannot sell it to someone who has a head on top of their shoulder. You cannot sell it. It's a very defective narration. And it caused many problems. This narration caused many problems. How? You have many groups nowadays, Islamic groups, including terrorist groups, are based on this narration. Because that history was great, we want to bring it back. We want to bring back Khilafah. Because if you accept that narration, that you were in great shape until this accident happened. So you have so many groups who are working, thinking that if we establish a Khalifa and reinstate Khilafah, things will be arousing. And these groups, they have a huge influence on many Muslims. So the question was how to do that. So we already taken it for granted that we need to reinstate that great system, which was not an Islamic system. Islamic system does not call for one person who has absolute power. The Islamic system is the Islamic principles are the ones that were applied during Khilafah al-Rashida, the rightly guided Khalifa, not afterwards. So the question will be, so you have groups who say we need to do this politically, and alhamdulillah, some group will say we need to do it peacefully, but some groups calls for confrontation and violence, and you know what that has caused in most Muslim countries became stagnant because of that perpetual struggle for power. Why? Because we still have in mind that we need to bring Khilafah and establish an Islamic state and etc. And then of course you have the groups who do this who want to pursue this with violence, and then you add to this narration, flawed narration, the misconception of jihad, that there is something in Islam, jihad talab, that you go and attack people and take their women and their children as spoils, and that's the Islam. Of course, if you're going to accept that narration of that we are being in great shape and that Islam calls for this, you're going to get ISIS. You're not going to get anything else. You're going to get ISIS or Qaeda. Choose. If you put these two together in a lab, in a chemistry lab, that's the product. If Khilafah must be reinstated and jihad is mandatory that you go and attack people, that's what you're going to get. And you're going to get the takfir as a byproduct. And then you add another misconception, which is sama' wa ta'a, the wali al-amr. You have people who obey blindly. Someone declares himself Khalifa and you go and they bay'ah, and then you stop thinking. Whatever they tell you. Something that the Sahaba did not do even with the Prophet. Even with the Prophet they used to discuss and say, is this wahi? No, it's not wahi, so we have different opinion. And the Rasul ﷺ was not offended. He encouraged them. He used to consult extensively. And then nowadays we will tell you, no, you have to obey. Completely obey the people who are in charge. You put this package together, that's what you're going to get. So, no wonder why we ended up in a total mess, because there is a total mess here. There is total mess here about our reality. By the way, some people will tell you that we are in good shape. So there is no need for everything that we're talking about. All this change that you're talking about, we are in good shape. So and then with this narration, with these misconceptions, no wonder why we ended up in total mess, and it caused a lot of damage. All of this because of that narration and because of those misconceptions. The least damage, and this is the least, that narration has caused is what? The least of damage is complacency. Nowadays you find people very much relaxed, even though we are way behind. But people will tell you, look at our history. And we had great scientists before. So even that is being misused. The achievements are misused to justify our current failure. So the least damage is to make us complacent. Why we're not contributing anything in this world now, in science and technology and research? Don't worry. Our fathers, look at what we have done before here. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تِلْكَ أُمَّةٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ لَهَا مَا كَسَبَتْ وَلَكُمْ مَا كَسَبْتُمْ. What do you have to show for? You cannot keep bragging about things that was achieved before. One of the other damages of this is this dilemma of Sunnah and Shia. Where it's coming from? Coming from there. coming from different narration about our histories. People have different understanding of what has actually happened. And then we ended up with this dilemma. So you can see how much damage was caused. Now the questions that we need to be asking. Why bringing people back to Islam did not affect any change? Nobody can deny that in the last decades, people came back to Islam in large numbers. Mosques are full, Islamic activity, Islamic channels, Islamic websites, Islamic everything. Why? Hijab is everywhere, etc. Even here, you have most mosques, they have first Jum'ah, second Jum'ah, third Jum'ah, etc. and all. Why nothing has changed? Because we had a defective version of Islam. Because we brought people to understand that it's very superficial. And why Islam was, because it went through those centuries of stagnation that we still think that we were in great shape. We were not. So why? Because what was embraced by large number of Muslims is Islam that was mutilated. The sense of mission was removed. Maqasid, the ultimate purposes were removed. It was frozen in time. Ijtihad was stopped long time ago. And all the focus is on the appearances and on sha'air, rituals. That kind of Islam will not produce anything, will not change anything. Why ending colonization did not change anything? These are the tough questions that we have to change. Why? Because colonization was not the root cause of the problem. It was a consequence. Why we were colonized? Because we were weak. So if we were weak, then we were not in great shape before. You can see how the logic. Why we were colonized? Because we were weak. Why we were weak? Because we were not in great shape before. We were in great shape. The state was strong, and we were doing better than others in this world, not because we were in great shape, but because they were in terrible shape. That's why the moment they woke up, the moment we had the Industrial Revolution in Europe, and we collapsed. We had a free fall. Why? Because things were already at work. You know, Quran tells us about Sulaiman. Prophet Sulaiman died, but he was leaning on his stick. And people think that they think that he is still alive. فلما قضينا عليه الموت ما دلهم على موته إلا دابة الأرض تأكل من سأته. Until those insects, they were eating up his stick, and then he fell. That's when they realized that he died. Now we were like Sulaiman. Probably we were leaning on the weakness of others. So when others woke up, we collapsed. So it was a consequence, and the root cause was the weakness. Why we were weak? Why we ended up with a defective version of Islam? It's because of those 12 centuries of dynasty rule and freezing of ijtihad. That's what we should accept, and the sooner we accept it, the better. The sooner we accept that we ended up in this situation with this mutilated version of Islam. Yes. Mutilated version of Islam and freezing, a mutilated version of Islam and this level of weakness because of the 12 centuries of dynasty rule and freezing of ijtihad. What is ijtihad? Using your mind to understand the religion and apply it in the best possible way. We were told to stop using our minds and to rely on the books of heritage and Torah and the books of Salaf. So we brought generation and generation of Muslims who were told to freeze their minds, freezing ijtihad and then freezing their minds. And why toppling oppressive regime did not change anything? Again, because that's not the root cause. Because those centuries have caused a lot of damage to the Muslim mind and to the Muslim personality and to our understanding of the deen, so, to the point that ending colonization did not fix it, bringing people back to us did not fix it, and then toppling oppressive regime did not fix it. Why? Because the damage is much deeper. The damage is here, the damage in the Muslim personality and in the Muslim mind that was caused by those centuries of stagnations. And all those problems, they were the tip of the iceberg. The fact that there is an oppressive regime, that's the tip of the iceberg. That's why when we removed the mountain was there. Why? Because underneath it's those damage that happened to the Muslim mind, Muslim personality, Muslim character, etc. So the sooner we accept this fact, and we should not be offended, we should not be shocked. This is the history of Muslims, not history of Islam. That's the history of Muslims. So these are human beings. They did wonderful things, but they did bad things. There is no problem in accepting that. That's not going to affect Islam at all, because this is a human work. That's not. It's a history of Muslim. It has some bright pages and a lot of achievement, but also has some shameful and embarrassing pages. And at the end of the day, history is only good for lessons. We need to understand it to لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ. You just learn lessons, but we should not get stuck in it, and we should not keep fooling ourselves that it was all rosy and all bright. وَتُوبِ إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ غَفُورٌ. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه، نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, the brutal fact that we have to have the courage and bravery to accept is that we lost our way centuries ago. And the true Islam, the very inspiring, empowering Islam, the Islam of spirituality, the Islam that focuses on character and manner, the Islam that makes you very ambitious and set very high aspiration for you, that Islam was lost centuries, many centuries ago. And it's never too late to fix the situation, provided that we accept this reality. So what is the solution? We need to understand what happened and why, and that's what we started. So come up with a very different narration. Understand why we lost our way, and that's what we started last time when we talked about the civil war or the fitna and the time of Umar bin Khattab, etc. And we're going to come back to that. And then if we accept how we lost our way, and then second is to forget about reinstating that history, but focus on rediscovering the true Islam. After you find where, why, and how we lost our way, you come out of the highway, in the wrong exit, and then you have to forget about reinstating that history, because history is only good for lesson, but also focus on rediscovering our deen, the true Islam, and it is that true Islam that will build a successful, effective, impactful movement and community as it did in the early days. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا وتوفنا وانت راض عنا واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا واجعل خير أعمالنا خواتمها وخير أيامنا يوم نلقاك. ربنا ارحم والدينا كما ربونا صغارا وارحم موتانا وجميع موتى المسلمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد.